So we will now start creating our texture. First of all, we will cut our stones this way, something like this, so that the depth won't be used till this point, because we only need this part to set the depth of our map. So I will join everything, Ctrl J again, go in front view, enter edit mode, press Z to be in wireframe mode. With the B key, I will select this part, press X vertices, I will select everything, pressing A, and separate them P by loose part, because I do want to have different objects. This will allow us to use a randomized position to change the color, or at least to have color information about our objects. Now I can exit edit mode. So I do have my different tiles here. I select everything, Ctrl Alt Shift C, origin to geometry, so that the origin is center for each tile, even if it's not really important. And now we will play with our baker here. So I will here open a 3D view, use the 0 as the camera. So now I have unparented those to the plane, because if you don't do so, when you will try to render this, you won't have anything appearing, because they are parented and are using the duplicate. So I've done it just to make some tests. Now that this is done, I can parent them again to our duplication object, and Blender will think for a second, because it will have to duplicate everything. And now here we have our rendering window. So we will be able to work on our baker. So I was finally able to open the node editor. I have my camera view here in render view mode. I will in the dimension click border here, so that I won't be rendering what's outside of the window. And we will mainly use emission shaders, so we don't need any lamp for the time being. So I will add a shader, ambient occlusion, if I can find it here, so that we can see our ambient occlusion here. And then in the world setting, we can change the distance of the ambient occlusion if we want. So I don't really see any big difference here. Any difference at all? Ah, okay. That's very sensitive. So the goal is to create a mask based on the ambient occlusion. So I will keep it this way, and we will use the AO outputted from a path here later on. So the first thing we want is to use the geometry here and output the pointiness. So now I will add a converter color ramp, and we set it to his, for example, and move those two close to the center, and we should get something like this, which is really, really nice. So what I will do for the sake of this video is that I will unparent the group here, and I will reparent them to our duplication plane once we will launch the render, because for the time being it makes the computer really slow and I don't need this to work. So we get this, which is nice, which can be used as a curvature map, for example. So here 0.48 and here for this one 0.52 should make a nicely contrasted map that we will be able to use with overlay upon our painting. So this is going to be our first map. Then we have the position, the random. So the random will be not here, but in the object info. So you get this, and that will allow us to add different, let's say, adjustment layers in Photoshop to slightly change the color from one tile to the other, or add different fusion mode, something like those. So let's add another emission shader here. Emission. So I'm using the node wrangler. So whenever I Ctrl-Shift-click on the shader, it's directly connected to the surface here, output. And when I Ctrl-click on this, it creates a viewer node, which is simply an emission shader. Okay, so I will duplicate this and put it there. So this is our second output. We have the AO, and we'll need just the normal map then. So there are two ways to do so. The first one is simply to import a shader that you will find on the internet, and I have been using the one from Max Puliero that you get from another website. I don't remember exactly which one it was, and it's the this node, and it really works nicely. It uses the normal matcap as a reference, this one. So if I get in top view, you'll see that I get exactly the same result here. So it uses this matcap to output this nice surface color, and that will allow us to generate nice normal map. But there is also a way to do it without any picture, and I will show you how to do so in a second. So the benefit of doing this to output your normal map instead of baking it differently is that we will still be able to add, I don't know if you want to add noise to the normals, for example, like this. You can put it in the displacement and you'll get the noise here. So, but what I just wanted to say is that even if you're using whatever texture you want to create noise on the surface, you will be able to bake it upon your sculpt as a single normal map. So that's gonna be really useful if you want to add more detail, or if you are working on another surface like I don't know, metal or something like this, and you want rust effect. That's gonna be a good way. So I will now show you how to recreate this, but without using any image texture, which is the normal matcap here. So to create this this normal like rendering node, I will border this. So on the left we have the render, and on the right I will enable the matte cap. So on the left it's the rendering. So if I select this one, you can see how it looks. And on the right it's our normal matte cap. So the first thing we need as an input will be the geometry. We need the normal information here. Okay, but we'll need to change the way it behaves, as for the time being these normal positions are based on the world position, and we need to change the way they behave based on the camera angle, or at least the viewport angle. So I will put this here, and we want that the object normal are based on the camera position. So I now need to change the position of those normals. So I've switched from vector to normal here, and we will add vector mapping. And I have made some experimentation until I get to the right result, but you need to rotate them by -180 degree. I think it was this, and -1 here. So it was not that obvious. I had to make some experimentation. The fact is that here, this greenish and black output means that we are probably looking at the back face of our object, like the normals are flipped. So I need them to be rotated by 180 degrees. And then here, the greenish value here that are facing to the positive y-axis are pointing down here. So I know I have to mirror them, because it's not rotating again, because the purplish here that is pointing this way is also pointing this way here. So if I add -1 here, I should get something close to this. But the problem here is that the value, this bluish value, is way too strong. It seems that those values here are correct, but this bluish value and purplish value is too strong. So this is not something I have found by myself, but it's kind of, I mean, when you have understood the fact that you can separate each direction and change the contrast of them, that could make sense what we are going to do. So we will go into the converter, separate X, Y, Z. Now we will add a color ramp for each of them. I will use is, Shift D and Shift D. And we will play with the depth, so it will be the Z here. So we will then converter recombine each, because we just want to change the influence of the depth here. So I have this value here, and now if I move this cursor, which is the depth, to the middle, I will have something less contrasted. So it's pretty subtle, but you see it will work. Now the last step will be to mix color. That will be our modified version here with the original one here, which was more contrasted, like this. And we will play with the hue and saturation, and by experience with a saturation of 0.75 you get close to this result. So I may have to increase this a little to get close to the one on this side, and also check the factor here. Okay, so you get more or less detail. And the good thing about this is that it's now not based on the camera position or the object position, but on the camera position. So we can bake here, it's the back side of the object. We can bake correct normals from any point of view. I will just show you the result on another blend file here. So this one is the one using the picture normal, while this one is the one using the same node tree as our. And moving those here allow us to kind of soften this area, for example. If you keep it too strong, you see that it doesn't look correct. So it allows us to play with the depth and have a better normal here. So like this, it looks nice. And we'll have a little more details than in the original matcap. Here we are. I will just duplicate the emission shader. And now we will be ready to bake our map, our different map, and paint them in Photoshop. We now need to use our duplication here. So I will select everything, select this one, Control P object, as it still have the duplication activated here. That will update this way. And now I will create a first shot. We will use the Z pass as our displacement and depth information, so displacement. We will also use the AO and the combine. We could use the emission, that's the same as we will be using an emission shader every time, but it doesn't matter. Now select this, the layers, okay. We will use nodes, and we will use an output file output. This will allow us to save our maps. So you can use whatever kind of file format you want. The Targa is nice, I think, because it will save a lot of information. I will keep it in PNG for the time being. We won't need the alpha. And I will save this in a new folder. And now you can plug the first one into it. And when you will select it, you will see the name here. So this is going to be the rock map normals for this first shot. Then I can add an input, which will be the Z pass. And we will see how to convert the Z into a picture, and add another one, which will be the AO. So I select this name. So I don't need this anymore. And for the Z pass here, we need to normalize it. So what normalize do in vector normalize is that it takes the minimum value available on the screen and the maximum value available on the screen, and it normalizes it from 0 to 1. So it will take the further point and set it to 0, and the nearest point and set it to 1. So we will have a black and white value. Now in the samples, we won't need a big sampling level. The picture will be rendered really fast as we are using an initial sample. I think 400 will be nice. I will use maybe 500 here and check my performances. So 2K 256 is good for GPU rendering, and we will output 2K map. That's gonna be enough. So now time to render. So in this case will be rendering the normals first, and then we'll launch another render for those two other passes. So here is our result here, the combined pass and the AO. The Z pass doesn't look great here, but once normalized, you will see that it is nice. We have it here, so I will have to invert it, but that's not a problem. There are some stuff here that has to be brushed or repainted or recalculated, but you have the general ID. So now we will have to bake the other information, so the random information here that can be used as a mask. So I will go into the layers, duplicate this one, get rid of those and call this normal map random, and we will plug the picture here and keep it selected. So as it is active, it will render only this and not the AO and the Z, etc., and resave this. Whatever, we don't really care about it. Or if you prefer, you can just unplug it like this. And as we are using pure emission now, we can switch the samples to 20 or something really low. It doesn't matter, that's gonna be enough. I can launch a render. So this is the AO, and the combine here will look really simple. It's our randomness factor. And I should have here a new map random. So I will get back to my material selection, Ctrl-Shift-Click for our dirt map or pointiness map. And here we will change the name here and call it dirt. And launch the render again. And what could be nice also is to use the, the position pass. So get back to the node here, because the location pass, sorry, because it may allow us to create mask in Photoshop very rapidly. Check and if it has any use for you, but then with the magical one you can select those tiles very easily. So I will just do it by principle, let's say Shift-D, location, and I will call this here ID and render it pressing F12. So on the normal map, what I should have done is to maybe add a plane beneath, so that we have a neutral position for the things that are under this, because this black area will be buggy. So I may recalculate it using a plane, or in Photoshop you can get rid of it by selecting this dark area and use neutral purple to fill it.